everybody. Welcome to Open the Gates. I'm your host, Matt Burke, and tonight we're going to be having on Kelly Jones and Matt Wagner, comic book icons. They're going to be talking about their new Dracula Kickstarter. It's book 2, The Brides. So if you guys give a warm welcome to Kel and Matt, that'd be awesome. What's up, guys? How you doing?
Doing good, thank you.
You guys have such a gentle pop-influenced introduction song there that
yeah, right.
it reminded of the Carpenters and
right, little Barry Manilow maybe.
Yeah. I heard a couple of hints of Milli Vanilli in there.
Yeah.
Man, I welcome back. You guys were on here almost about a year ago. We were talking the first campaign. Yeah. We had a blast.
Book 1, The Impaler.
Yeah, man, and we know who you guys are, but for those viewers that don't know who you guys are, maybe you can introduce yourselves to the audience.
Okay, Kel, I'll go first. So I have been in comics for 40 plus years. I'm part of the original wave of indie creators in the 80s. I'm most known for my long-running indie epic saga Grendel and my other kind of more personal allegory Mage. I've worked on a ton of mainstream projects over the years, including Batman. I drew and wrote the first Trinity storyline starring Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. And I co-wrote with Quentin Tarantino his first and only foray into comic books, the Django Zorro crossover.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say you forgot Zorro.
And I wrote Zorro leading up to that crossover for about 3 or 4 years. Yep. And had a ton of fun on that.
Yeah. Oh, the super fun read.
Kel, you're up.
Like Matt, I've been doing this over 40 years. I've done, I don't know, Deadman, Sandman, Batman, Red Rain, Batman monthly for about 3 years.
Just those little things.
Just a few characters. But Swamp Thing, stuff like that. But wonderfully been able to skirt around superhero and navigate just these kind of oddball horror things. As Matt says, he was independent. I was not an indie creator, but I was independent within the mainstream.
You were living the indie dream inside.
Yeah,
the mainstream.
I was inside of it. So, but all my sensibilities had been more towards Matt's type of stuff than basically the mainstream thing. So, nope, I've been around, like I said, to God together, Matt, 80 years. Isn't that disgusting?
80 plus, buddy.
That's some talent, man. So with all that wellspring of knowledge, man, what could you guys tell us about your partnership on this? I think the best Dracula story I've read. What's a little bit of the rundown on Dracula book 1, The Impaler, for people that don't know?
Well, I mean, as Kel said there, we have this collective wellspring of experience, but at the same time, we've been pals for a long time, probably 30 plus of those 40 plus years.
Yeah.
And we had always kind of vowed that one day we would work on something together, and the intent was something significant, not just a little one-off, not just some team up on fucking Batman or whatever, you know. And finally, after trading those sort of promises to each other for a while, I had been brewing on this Dracula concept for a while. How do I, I've always loved vampires. How do I approach Dracula in a very unique and contemporary fashion? And I finally hit on an idea. And one of the last times that Kelly echoed that same sentiment to me, we got to do something together someday. I said, "Hey, man, are you serious, man? Because I think I really have an idea that's going to be fucking perfect for both of us, and but it's going to take 5 or 6 years of our lives to make this happen, And are you ready? Is the time right for you and for me? And it was for both of us. So we hooked up, and it's just been absolute harmony, man. Just absolute dark, beautiful harmony ever since.
Has it been a year since you guys were on here talking about Dracula? Because that seemed like that book came quick.
Yeah.
No, it's actually really been less than a year.
Yeah, the last Kickstarter was okay. So the scope for this project is it will be 4 Dracula graphic novels. Each one
Nice.
will come out in October. So orbiting Halloween, do a Kickstarter every Halloween. So the last one was last Halloween. And we were able to get it into backers' hands about a month and a half, 2 months ago.
Yeah.
2 months ago. Yeah.
Quick turnaround. You guys fulfilled quick.
And then you know, again, to bring Dark Horse into this, we always wanted to try the Kickstarter model because, again, Kelly and I both been in the industry for a long time. The Kickstarter scene's a relatively new motif in the industry. We knew we wanted to do that. Yet at the same time, we wanted to reach as big an audience as we could.
Hell yeah.
And there are certain people that just don't pay attention to Kickstarters at all. They only have their eyes on the traditional publishing, the publishers, traditional publishing methods, traditional retail outlets.
Yeah, they don't even know what crowdfunding is.
What? Say it again.
I'm sorry for interrupting you, but yeah, it's like regular people don't even know what crowdfunding is. You try to explain it to them.
Exactly. So we worked out a deal with Dark Horse to release a trade paperback version of all 4 of these graphic novels. Now, that said, the only place to get the hardcover is via the Kickstarter. It's exclusive to the Kickstarter. So if hardcover's your jam, that's where to go. And Kelly has done these just remarkably beautiful end papers for the Kickstarter for the hardcover editions. That said, the Dark Horse edition is beautiful too. It just doesn't have those end papers, but it's the same material. It is European album size, so it's 8.5 by 11, like larger than standard American comic size.
Yeah.
And
the only problem with the hardcover is that I'm constantly washing my hands so I don't get anything on it. Like
yeah, right.
100%, man. Like what I loved about that book, man, like because Dracula's my favorite character, and it almost felt like Tolkien or something, but with Dracula. You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
a friend of mine called it the first volume "Savage Sword of Dracula."
Yeah.
Did y'all have input on the story, or was it just Matt? Were you like was that all your idea as far as like the
I mean,
Academy of
my
Satan?
whole take on this was what the fuck do you do with Dracula? I mean, it's been done to death, and you know every single film adaptation says this is the most faithful adaptation of the book, and Jesus, none of them are. I know.
And, Dracula.
And so my idea was like, well, let's not do the book. Let's stick religiously close and tight to everything that Stoker laid down, but we will not retell the book. So in these 4 volumes, you won't see a retelling of the book. You won't see Harker go to the castle. You won't see Van Helsing. You won't see Mina. You won't see Lucy. But
see, I was concerned about that. Yeah, because I was like, am I going to like this? I was like,
fuck yes,
I've heard Dracula over and over and over again.
Fuck yes, you like this, man.
No, I liked it. I loved it because it was like an adventure. Like I've never heard this tale of Dracula.
And all the stuff that we're drawing from is stuff in the book. So, for instance, this first volume is all about how he becomes a vampire, and it's all about him attending something called the Scholomance, which is something that Stoker has Van Helsing mentioned twice in the book. And it's a seminary for the dark arts that Satan himself hosts up in the Romanian highlands in the mountains. And it's a tenure of once every 7 years, and he takes on 10 scholars, and he keeps one of them at the end. And I thought, my God, this is in the book. Why has nobody ever fucking done anything?
Right?
That's to deal with Satan.
I don't remember that.
Well, of narrative possibilities, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's our first volume is how he becomes a vampire. And another big thing that I really, really was focused on is like, I need a really special way for him to become a vampire. Like he can't just get bitten by another vampire. That's fucking boring. You know, that's ordinary. That's ordinary. This is Dracula. He is the most famous vampire, and I would even say the most famous literary character of all time. And we need some special way, and I won't do big spoilers here, but there's a very special way that he becomes a vampire.
Yeah, Matt told me it was
devil in
metal
there,
as
man.
fuck.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
I like that you stayed true to like Dracula's attitude, like his personality. You know what I'm saying?
That was
throughout the whole book.
That was another thing. Is, again, in the first volume,
Yeah.
he doesn't become a vampire until kind of the very end. And when people come to a Dracula book, they want vampire shit, right?
But he was a monster throughout the whole book.
I had to make them kind of forget that, right? I had to make them kind of like, okay, you're not really focused on that. You're focused on Dracula. Here's the Dracula you recognize.
Yeah.
You recognize him before he becomes a vampire, so that when he becomes a vampire, it's just another version of him.
Yep.
It's just a bigger, more powerful, darker version of him.
Well,
But he's already that guy. He's already
he was
that
pretty
guy.
dark. Like it's almost I can't see how he got any darker after he became a vampire, because he was pretty dark before that. Dude.
About like the modern adaptations of Dracula is they all work in like that love story, right?
It's not the love story.
Yes, it's Dracula doesn't love; he's pure evil, right? But of
he
course,
uses,
the person who introduced that element was Richard Matheson in the TV movie that was produced by the Dark Shadows guy,
Dan Curtis, which was then later just taken whole cloth and repeated in the Coppola version.
Yes,
and Coppola, and I keep talking about this. Coppola in the PR for that film, the 1993 film, which I love in certain ways and I hate in a lot of ways. But he was quoted as saying, "The original novel is not a horror novel; it's a love story." No, it fucking isn't. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. Like, did we read the same book?
Yeah.
It's like he turned a love scene out of what really was like I can't say the word,
a rape scene.
With Mina, right? He's forcing her head down to drink his blood. She either has to suffocate or drink his blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not exactly consensual, is what I'm saying.
We have a lot of oral rape instances in our book, actually.
Yeah.
What I like too about your book, it was a very comic booky too at the same time.
Yes,
it also had that feel of like EC, and it wasn't fucking pretentious either.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I really loved about the book. I felt like I was reading a comic from back in the day.
Kelly and I are trying to recreate the stuff that inspired us as we were young comic book writers and readers. I mean, Kelly just brings so much to the table. I keep writing these scenes and thinking Kelly's going to draw this so fucking great, and he draws it even better than I could have hoped.
That's crazy.
Yeah, talk about that a bit, man. Talk about what's going on.
There was a scene in there where. And I was wondering, I was like, why are they telling this part? I was like, this what does this have to do with the story? It was the two kids like fishing in the lake, and all of a sudden, like the storm goes crazy, like the waters go crazy, fucking storm hits, and they drown. And I'm like, whoops. And then Dracula did it.
Well, you see three stages of, again, Dracula in the novel seems to wield powers beyond any of the other vampires we see. So
that was another thing too. Like while the rest of the scholars were over there, like trying to study hard, and impress Satan, Dracula's like, "How can I kill Satan?"
coupled with the Scholomance experience, that just means he's a necromancer in addition to this. But in the book, then you see 3 instances of him trying to learn how to control the weather, which he does very readily in the novel.
Yeah,
and there's a first stage, a second stage, and a third stage when he's just tossing lightning around, and he's just the master of the storm. So you have to see those 3 stages of him going to from a first instance to a deadly instance to just a master of the elements.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And it stayed true to Dracula like throughout the whole book. Like it was
the Dracula from the novel is totally OP. It's like ridiculously OP. He can turn into a mist, can control animals, all kinds of stuff, basically like a spellcaster, really.
Well, he's king of his kind.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the arts in here is just phenomenal, man. I think it's your best work, Kel.
I think what you can, and I agree, I think what it always comes down to is if you have a great story, it will elevate your appreciation of the art.
Definitely.
Because what I've enjoyed listening here is you guys are all really excited about the story, and that's exactly how I was when I read the script. Everything you guys are saying, I said to him when it was just me having read his script, and I went.
There was another scene in there too where, like, that chick, like she comes over there and she's like, yes, the mirror finally told me how to transform into a beast, and she's a cat, right? And Dracula's like, oh yeah, and he pulls his face off. He becomes a bat monster.
Total Kelly at home my mind. Transformation. Kelly's like, yeah, I'm gonna rip the fucker's face right off.
Yeah. I was like, that's fucking Dracula.
That was so good.
So do you guys work like the way I work with Preston is with like our rule is coolest idea always wins. Right. So if it's not your idea, and don't be a dick about it, just go with like the cooler idea. Is that how you two work?
Well, I don't.
Yeah, go ahead, Cal.
My thing is, I don't want to tell Matt at all what to do. I have no interest. Even if I have this great idea, I want Matt just to write his story. Number one, write his story. Right. Tell his story. My job is to try to get his beats. Matt writes these great scenes, and they all lead to the next scene. He's not a guy who just scatter shots. It's each scene leads to the next. Nothing is wasted. So you want to punctuate the point. And I may want to highlight something or let something just happen, but essentially what you're seeing is exactly what Matt wrote.
Gotcha.
Well, now, Brian, I think our situation's different because Matt's actually an extremely brilliant illustrator on top of being,
oh my God,
a writer. So, what I tell Brian all the time is that an artist is going to see things different than a writer.
Yep.
Part of what aids me is that I'm able to. I try to not over describe things. I keep saying I don't write these Alan Moore scripts. I try to keep
oh my God.
I try to keep things very brief. I try to get across exactly what I'm looking for, but then Kelly always brings more. Kelly always brings that extra little oomph.
That cool.
Well, for instance, in the current one we're doing right now, The Brides. There's one of the brides that he has to work at a little harder. He has to work a little harder to get her. And then when he finally feeds on her, and I just happened to notice this the other day in looking at Kelly's pencils. He has her bent over and, she's half naked and she's sprawled out and he's just going at it. And I looked at, she's got wounds on 6 parts of her body. Like he has just been like, and that's just so wonderful. It's such a, everybody understands what that's like in a psychological sexual teasing kind of method, It goes on so long that you just become obsessed and overwhelmed, and yet, when it's Dracula, it's just all the more dramatic and cinematic. Oh God, Kel, you just
right. So you're not gonna.
Matt had said a long time ago. Matt had recommended a book for me to look at, and in it was a wonderful book. And what it was. I remember him pointing out, he says, it's not highlighted, but it was these 2 characters. They were going to or did have sex. I can't remember now. But it was this little gesture this girl did. It had nothing to, they're talking, they're doing it. And said, look at that. That's what they do. This is normal. And it was riveting. It's one of those little things. But when you're reading it, you don't notice. When you paused and looked, it was a knockout storytelling move, and I never forgot that. So I figured at that point I wanted to imbue what we did with you pick up stuff from a writer, what they like. You can see how what the stories Matt's into. Matt is one of those writers that is very honest. And it may not be who he is, but he's going to do it in the story what the character is. And not a lot of writers can do that. A lot of writers put themselves in it, and it takes you away from it. If you love this Dracula so much, it's because Matt's writing Dracula. It's not writing Matt's version of Dracula. It's Dracula, right?
That moment Kelly's talking about there, it was. So I'm married to a woman who grew up in Montreal. So when I first got together with her, I lived up there with her, and I had access to a whole bunch of French graphic albums for the first time.
Oh, okay.
And there was this one. There's a very popular French series called Sombre, means somber, and it takes place during the French Revolution. It's incredibly gothic, and there's a love scene between a pair of characters who have snuck into a mausoleum in the middle of the night to have sex. Crazy. And the guy's on top of the girl, and they're both naked. And there's just this shot where you can tell she's reaching down to insert him.
Yes, it was.
And it all takes all that grabbing of the genitalia. All that takes place off panel, but you can tell exactly what's going on, and it's such an incredibly real moment, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember sending that to Kelly, and he's like, "Oh, that's the shit, man! That right there."
Yeah, it was a little thing.
So real, and it's so evocative, and it's so pure,
we were in San Francisco signing, and at a break, he said, "Hey, you got to look at this. Just this guy's art is wonderful, but look at this. This is what makes him great. Are these little touches he does where they're the acting." It's the acting. They're talking. They're doing their thing. It's just the acting. So
and it's also human. It's also human. I mean, even when we're portraying these human, supernaturally human, non-human characters, we're trying to capture their humanity. You know, even when you're portraying a monster, you want to show the humanity inside that monster. You know,
100%. So we know we know where Drax at. You know, we're lucky. We know where Vlad's at right now because we got the book. But where are we gonna find him at right now when he's in book 2, The Brides? What's going on in there?
Well, where you're going to find him is that attaining all this power, as I think anybody finds in normal life. Let's say a politician, let's say a man of business, let's say anybody. You get a lot of power, a lot of restrictions too. A lot of shit that holds you back. A lot of shit that doesn't let you just forge forward and conquer all over the place, you know?
No.
And our approach to Dracula is that there have been vampire-like creatures since the beginning of all mythologies. Back to ancient Egypt, there have always been revenants. There have always been creatures that have crawled out of the grave to consume the lifeblood of the life force and blood of the living. And in our version, because he was directly anointed by Satan, Dracula is the first cognizant vampire.
Wow.
He's the first vampire that retains a human mind. And
that's
we see in the first one that he's kind of fond of the ladies, even though he's merciless. And if you're on his wrong side, you won't get any mercy, but he kind of likes the ladies, you know, and he kind of is a little soft-hearted to them, as soft-hearted as his hard heart will get.
Yeah. He has to kind of.
And he's looking for a companion. And how do I get that? Because he knows that every time he feeds and every time he bleeds somebody dry, they're going to rise from the dead, but they're just going to be these ghouls, basically.
Right.
And that's not what he wants. He doesn't want some this fucking undead ghoul sharing his casket. So how does he figure out how to do that? And that's explained in the book.
It is.
That was fun.
Then in the novel, there are the 3 brides of Dracula, very, very classically portrayed in the novel, even though they're only on screen for about 3 or 4 pages.
Yeah.
So we had to come up with 3 very specific women, very specific reasons for why they are in Dracula's orbit, 3 specific reasons why he would choose them to be part of his kind of sinister harem. And oh my God, Kelly just draws all of them so sensuously and gorgeously and realistically and just imbues so much humanity into all of them. And yet when they turn, they're so fucking terrifying.
Oh, fuck.
One thing I like about Kelly, the way he does his women, he doesn't do skinny women. You know what I'm saying? They got tiny waists, but they got curves, you know, and they look like real women, the way real,
they're
soft.
It's got camel women.
No. Yeah, exactly.
Very hammered.
Not like rubber band women.
No, I, as Matt says, it's not a love story, but it is a lust story.
Yeah.
And so they've got to be things that would stand out to him. There's got to be something that stands out, and beyond just their physicality, there's something there that he would decide I could spend eternity, which he can with them. So it's a pretty high bar they probably have to cross. I like how each one, the bar gets higher though.
Yeah.
First one was,
oh man,
he's horny.
Let's try this.
Yeah. She's just horny and she's good looking. And then he says, and then he keeps it right. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know when my wife read it, she thought, the real curse isn't he needs blood. The real curse is locked in with 3 women in a castle for eternity.
Man. Can you imagine having 3 women mad at you at the same time?
And
forever.
Okay, so that's
but I fed you a baby.
that's a challenge too, is to not introduce too much modernity into it.
No, there's
Right,
none.
right.
Even though I try and portray these women as very distinct and very human and very understandable, in no way are they in Dracula's mind, and truthfully in their minds, are they Dracula's equal.
And they would never.
He's the fucking Lord and Master. That's it. You know.
And they would not want to live like modern women. They're of their time. They would not understand it, and they would reject it and think it's evil. So they live in their time, knowing their place and exploiting that. And that's what I really enjoyed.
Oh yeah.
I thought I've told Matt the whole time what he does, it's good, because I personally dislike modernity in something from the past. Because it takes you out of it. It just removes it from
100%.
Exactly.
Matt's written a story that if there were no vampires, I would be absolutely fascinated by it. If there was not the vampire aspect, and I love it,
but there's vampires.
It works because you believe the world. I think Impaler and Brides both have the thing that will connect it, in that it's of its time, and that makes it far more interesting than our values on those days.
Oh yeah.
And then when you do the vampirism and the supernatural and all that stuff, it's a 10 out of a 10.
Well, Dracula only is only a vampire like at the last few pages of the book, the first book. And that's what I'm saying. Like that whole book is so interesting. I'm saying, like you said, I mean, even if he never turned into a vampire in that first book, it was still amazing.
Well,
Yeah,
again,
that's an
he
incredible
was
writer.
to make him recognizable as the Dracula we know
Yes.
and loathe, you know, from the very beginning, you know, to make him a fucking bastard, to make him unreliable, to make him treacherous, to make him a monster, to make him power hungry, you know, so that when the vampirism comes along, it's just the next step on the way.
Like, fuck. like
I love the fact it did not make him worse. He was already there.
It just gave him a little extra bump.
Yeah. And it's difficult because so many of the things promised in Impaler are delivered 10 times in Bride.
Oh my god.
I can't wait.
Did
and that's another thing too, like Dracula's arrogance. Okay. Like I was rooting for him to be
Yeah, I was too, man. I didn't know what to expect about villains. I was just mind blown, you know.
The biggest, you know, there's many fictional predecessors we could point to, you know, Hannibal Lecter,
Scarface,
Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Most importantly, Tony Soprano.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Soprano, who you love and you understand, and yet is still a fucking monster from top to bottom.
100%.
You know?
The Japanese always seemed like they were the ones that could do that sort of a thing, where the bad guy could be the protagonist, like in the Street Fighter movies or the Sleepy Eyes of Death, that kind of a thing. It's just like, I just find it interesting. It's like the Golgo 13. The Japanese understand that, but it's not really very much American thing.
There's no sentimentality in this. There's sentiment, but no sentimentality.
And Brian, I will say a little thing called Grendel.
Yeah.
That's right. I was about to say, like, the Japanese had it until Matt showed up.
Yeah,
man. Yeah, man.
Hunter Rose was pretty arrogant too.
I always point to a huge point in my narrative development as an artist was, you know, when you're growing up, you love Superman, right? You want to be the superhero. You want to right all wrongs. You want to be impervious. You want to fly.
Yeah.
And then there comes a point where you realize, oh, that's never going to happen.
Exactly.
And then you start looking Batman. Then you want to be bitch. You want to be sneaky. You want to be cool. You want a great car. And when I was about 16 or 17, I discovered the works of Michael Moorcock, and specifically Elric.
Dude.
Who was this amazing anti-hero who you really kind of loved, but he did horrible shit all the time. And he ends
horrible shit. But he came from a horrible culture where that was
everybody he ever loves, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought, man, if this kind of narrative is possible, that's what I want to do, you know?
Well, it's the definition of Gothic, and Dracula is Gothic, and Gothic is everything bad will happen, the goals are achieved, but it's awful how you get there, and no one makes it. And that's what I think. What I really loved when I got the story was it had no redeeming qualities to the character, which made it undiscovered world to go into. I didn't have to worry about Matt going to have to write a scene where, okay, he's a likable dude. No, he's not. I remember reading it, and there were a couple scenes where I was shocked. And I don't get shocked. I know everything. I've read everything. I've read many, many scripts. I've done a lot of terrific stuff with, but this was the first time I actually went, shit, he did this thing. But my thing wasn't like, oh, Matt changed it or whatever. My reaction was, readers will do the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, Matt's this should be easy for Matt because I mean, Grendel.
Grendel is made up out of whole cloth. I'm the god of Grendel. Whatever I say goes. Yeah. Be as ludicrous.
I think the amount of scholarship that Matt has put in.
Whereas this, as Kelly says, yes, I have to.
I have not seen that, and I know tons of vampire stuff. I know Dracula. I've read the novel several times, and so for Matt to shock me or impress me with. Where it would do to me where I go, oh yeah, why didn't they? That's right there. There's a big place for open field running on this.
When I first called Kelly to talk about this and said, okay, here he says, I thought it was going to be Batman or Grendel.
I did. I knew. I said, well, Matt writes a great Batman. I'm sure he's got and I do Batman, and they all do, it'll be Batman. It'll be terrific. It'll be Batman though.
And I said, no, it's going to be Dracula. And he was just like, what?
And like the real Dracula, not like the Dan Curtis, Richard Matheson Dracula.
Matt was smart enough to say, no, it's not what you think. It's not what you think. And I went, okay.
We're not doing the book. We're not doing the book.
And it was intriguing. Everything he said was so intriguing at that point. So when he told me just on the phone what he had in mind,
because I told him ideas all through all 4 books.
Yes, and that's what he said.
I don't have all 4 books completely lined up,
and I love
ideas.
Yeah, you got to keep it fun for yourself.
No, the first thing he said is it's not the book. It's not. He says, but it is canon, and it is him, and it's everything. And I'm thinking that's a neat trick. You're not doing the book, but it is him, and you guys now know it's right on the money.
100%.
Yeah,
and I don't know if you guys heard about the Luc Besson movie that's coming out, the Dracula movie that he's doing. It's called Dracula, A Love Tale. About 400 years he's been waiting.
The only Dracula movie I'm excited about is Robert Eggers' Nosferatu.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm interested in that.
I'm hoping that's going to bring Gothic horror back because the new Hammer Studios, I don't know if you've seen their Dr. Jekyll. It doesn't seem like they're bringing back Gothic horror.
No, they don't know how to
scary again.
No, they don't know how to do it. But Matt and I grew up and watched Gothic horror, so we know Gothic horror. And I think because it's went so far away, us doing what we do seems absolutely brand new.
Yeah,
because no one. I think when I look at Impaler, I go, "There's nothing out there that's like this."
No,
this
absolutely not.
Its own thing. It's stripped down. It's very punk in its way.
Yeah, very much.
It's like old Hammer.
Yeah,
if anything was going to be a Hammer movie, like Impaler.
One of the things that made it such a success is the inclusion of our colorist Jose Villarrubia.
Yep.
Oh, he is good. Yeah, I want to say something about him. He's amazing.
The reason I thought at him, bringing him on board, was of the restoration work he had recently done on Wrights and Swamp Thing, and also on the Richard Corbin library for Dark Horse. Because I've always maintained this thing that Kelly's work needs to be colored vibrantly. Kelly takes care of all the atmosphere and the shadows. Don't color Kelly's art dark, Yeah. And Jose got that. And if you go through and you look at the book, Jose has very subtly filled in all the gutters with an
Yeah.
off-white color.
I noticed that. I was like,
That
all
makes
these
it
pages
feel
are
like
white.
you're
I was
reading
like,
a Warren magazine from the 70s.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
I
it.
was like, it was subtle, but I thought that was
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like it was all,
Yeah.
and that's another thing too. Like colorists, I've had bad experiences with colors because it seems like they want to go really dark on
Oh,
everything.
I know
and
that they
it's-
want to play with all those goddamn computer tricks, you know. And
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
not.
They wanna paint over your
knows
inks.
when to include little touches of that and
Mhm.
when to just drop back and do it flat color, you know.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This is
Wow.
why I make sure that he picks his colorist, right?
Well, and remember that black is a color, so don't compete with it.
Exactly.
Exactly
Yeah.
so. Exactly so, my friend. Yep.
yeah, Kelly, like your stuff. I mean, I'm a black and white stan, right?
Yeah.
Your stuff in black and white, like you're one of those artists that I just like Bernie Wrightson. I just
Well, you want it. You want it to. You want it. You always think that if it couldn't, if there was some reason books couldn't be colored, it could still. It wouldn't look like a coloring book. It would stand on its own.
exactly.
But
Like
that's
these books-
Matt's. That was Matt's thing of saying to me, heavy metal, creepy, eerie. That's what I want.
Mm.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah, these books in black and white, like that's going to be a whole thing, you know.
Yeah. I think
we are almost certainly going to do artist editions.
Mm.
The oversized thing, the full size art version in black and white. It will most likely be 2 volumes. So book 1, book 2 in one volume, book 3, book 4 in another volume.
Yeah.
Those
What I
are
love
coming.
about the-
Those are coming. That's still a little bit ahead of us, but that's on the pipeline.
I
for
gotta
sure.
draw them. So they don't exist
Get back
yet.
to work.
They don't exist yet.
I love the colors though. Like we were talking about it a year ago. It does remind me of like the Italian stuff, like Suspiria. And when I'm reading the book, it did attack my senses a little bit. It made me feel a little dizzy in some ways when I was reading.
Fantastic.
It took me into a horrific fantasy fucking world.
Yeah.
I was just like, whoa, okay, you know. And there was just all this stuff like, oh man, Brian, you're in for a fucking treat. Anybody that has,
I know, I can't wait to get my hands on it.
You don't know what's gonna happen to you. You're gonna punch.
It's an amazing book.
I was wondering too, Matt. Were you did you take any reference from like folk tales or anything from any type of lore from Eastern Europe or anything like that? Maybe Madame Bovary,
sure. Again,
the new book.
The Scholomance is an actual
Romanian
Eastern European legend of this seminary for the dark arts. And then, so Brian, a little bit of spoiler here. There's a dragon, the beast of the apocalypse at the end, and that is in the actual legends.
Yep.
Deep underneath the caverns of the Scholomance resides the beast of the apocalypse that Satan's champion will ride out across the plains of the earth during the end days. Additionally, just the existence of other, as I said, other revenants, other ghouls, other bloodsuckers. In almost every instance, up until a certain point in the Victorian era, they are just ghosts. They are just ghouls. They are just things that come back.
The aristocrat.
Whereas with the advent of Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu and the Vampire by John Polidori, and even to a certain extent, Barney the Vampire.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you have a vampire that has cognizance, that can fit in amongst humanity, that can pass amongst humanity, as opposed to just coming in and raiding at night. These characters all of a sudden are interacting with their prey, and of course that came to full fruition in Stoker's Dracula, and so all of that played into our approach to the subject matter.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what you're doing with.
That's what makes the book so interesting, is that Matt included all these elements. The dragon was like I read the dragon part, and that was in my head, but like there's so many other cool things in there. You know what I'm saying? Like it's amazing that you was able to fit all of that into that amount of pages. You know, because I don't really think the book's really that thick, but it's robust.
Well, let me say, book 2. Bigger, badder, and bloodier. It's 30 pages longer.
It's what I told you earlier. Matt writes a scene. The scenes are like several pages, and then you go to the next scene, which is several pages, and the next scene is several pages, and it builds and builds and builds. So it feels like you've read something massive in the 90 plus pages that it is. I know when I read it, I kept thinking, nothing's thrown away. So each one of these sequences builds to his character. It builds to the overall story, the arc of the character, all these very literary things Matt does. At the same time, it's blood and sex and violence and all the things.
But besides Matt, like the way Kelly interpreted those scenes, like the hag,
yeah,
you know, when they had a part there with the hag, and Kelly's interpretation of that hag was incredible. Like it was almost like the Chuck Jones hag, except
yes.
oh yeah, right. Yeah. And also the wolves, it was incredible. Like it was almost cartoony, but not. So,
I'm sorry to do this, but I'm sorry. This is a thing that I do. If I'm on a live stream and I see somebody's critter come in, I'm like, show us your critter. Who's your buddy, Matt? Who's your buddy?
This is one of our three. This is Iggy.
Aw, handsome. That's a gorgeous face. Okay, sorry about that.
I will shut her stream down. She's about being up here, so now she's going to settle down and not interrupt. So.
This is
this looks incredible, man.
Badass piece from Kel right here.
This is from book 2. This is from book 2. This is on the ramparts of Castle Dracula. You know, one of the cool things about this is the way Kelly's able to impart this absolute just malicious glee in Dracula, and then these pensive moments. Look at that lower left-hand face where he's like contemplating.
That's what I'm saying. I love that.
It's got a what the fuck kind of quality to it.
What I like that Matt does is he does incredibly horror. When I was looking at it the first time but nowhere does he do the I'm a villain, evil, doing evil. He doesn't. He's not even thinking he's evil. He would be horrified, probably, or he would impale you if you called him evil. So this is a character completely unaware. He's sociopathic, narcissistic, whatever you want to say, but he does not consider himself evil. He was a champion of God.
I don't know if he's evil either. You know,
I'll point to Tony Soprano, Hannibal.
When he was human, I don't know if he was evil. Like the way you wrote him, it was almost like he was. I mean, he was a tyrant. But sometimes you have to be a tyrant in the Dark Ages to survive the Dark Ages. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody was a tyrant that was that, you know.
When I don't know, it was maybe 20 plus years ago, 30 years ago, I had went to Rome for DC to promote Batman because they were going to start to publish there. And while we were there, they took us to the Vatican to go there, and they had this huge museum down below in the basement. I mean, when I say basement, it was glorious. But in there, they had all the things that had come to the Vatican over 1,500 years.
Oh my God!
In there, and it was Egyptian and Persian and Saxon and Celtic and all this stuff. In there, though, were these laudatory letters to Vlad Dracula.
Wow!
What?
Because he had held back the line.
He held back the Muslims. Yep.
He had been awarded their high, whatever the highest commendation they could give him. He got it because he was holding the line and an inspiration to other European rulers. So at the time, there was communication. Now, I'm certain Vlad didn't say, "Yeah, I'm evil." It's like, and they knew what he was doing. They knew about the impaling. They knew of the violence. They knew of what kind of a guy he was, but he was holding the line.
Yeah, 100%. He had to do what he had to do, and in turn, he was taught by them too, and he was also getting his retribution as well, I believe.
But to give an idea of his mindset as a leader, as the nobility, there's a line here in the second. I just punched up my script here. There's a line in the second book where he says, "Certainly, every aristocrat knows the isolation of their title. Camaraderie is the purview of soldiers and peasants."
Yes. Yes.
Now, this is the thing that I find interesting is that in Dracula is not Vlad Tepes, right? He has the blood almost certainly, like he's of his lineage, right? But he's not Vlad the Impaler.
Yes, he is.
But so those are separate characters, and you're kind of taking them and you're putting them together. It's like in Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Well, yeah, he's not. He is Vlad Tepes, but it's not. We're not. At some point, we have to stop following a historical record,
right?
Because he becomes a vampire.
Because he becomes Dracula,
right?
Yeah. One of the things that because then that makes me think about like because I've always wondered what were Vlad Tepes's years as a hostage like?
Yeah.
Because I think he was abused.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what turned him into like basically a serial killer.
You mean as a child?
Yes.
When he was, we cover that a bit in book 2.
Yeah,
you do.
Oh shit! Oh damn! Okay.
Yeah, it's covered and
we get into a few specifics that are
that's beautiful. I love that. That's amazing.
Nobody's ever done anything.
It makes the woman he's telling him to just weep.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's a great move.
Right here.
It's a great move by Dracula, though. I always thought Matt did a good number. He in his seductions and courting of each one of these women, he knows exactly where their spot is, and with the one he's speaking with, it's his own personal experience as a child, and his own
tragedy.
Yep.
May I say, Kelly is a wizard at weaving shadows.
Oh my god!
Well, like I said, I love this piece. Like you're literally inside of his head, and you're seeing like his world. The
well, it's symbolic.
Yeah.
It's all his. It's all inside of him. That's his village. That's his land. That's his world.
And this is a perfect, Brian. This is a perfect illustration of melding the reality and the narrative. Of course, in the novel, it's called the Borgo Pass, right? The pass that leads up to the castle. In reality, it was called the Tehuta Pass.
Really?
And this little village there is the village of Tehuta. And we find out what happens eventually to the village of Tehuta and why it's no longer there.
Oh man, fucking love it, man.
I can guess that a certain somebody was involved.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
So I mean, that's great that you do your research, because I always do a ton of research, even if I'm like doing like an Aztec vampire or something like that. I'll read like 2 or 3 books about the Aztecs, even though I know I'm not going to use 99.9% of that.
Absolutely, you need that 1 or 2 little aspects. Just flesh it out and give it reality. Yep.
Yeah. Because those little diamonds are going to come down, and you're gonna be like, what about this? Yeah.
Right. Yep. We got our campaign up right here. For those of you that don't know, I got the link pinned at the top of the chat. It's also in the description. You guys can go back right now. If you guys haven't picked up the first book, it's on this campaign. It's the big hard cover edition. You're also going to get the back matter with more artwork in the back. I highly recommend backing it right now.
We also have a bunch of cool merch. Put me up on full screen there, Matt.
Here we go.
Matt, you're losing control of your own show, bro.
So we have a bunch of cool T-shirts and an awesome hat.
Ooh,
Nosferatu is Count Warlock's really in the pop culture right now, isn't he?
To do this, we had to form an imprint, and our imprint is Orlock Press.
Yeah, boy.
So we have a cool hat and a bunch of cool T-shirts. There's a terrifically beautiful gilet style print, 18 by 24 print. That's just a terrific, very splashy moment from Kelly's artwork. And then we have Kelly's main cover, my variant cover. That's a good stop right there. We have Kelly's main cover on the left, my variant cover in the middle, and then on the right is the limited signed and numbered edition, which comes with a tip-in plate signed by both of us, limited to 666 diabolical copies. And if you just keep scanning down there, you'll see some of the other rewards. That's just some cool details from the book. There's a terrific quote from Mike Mignola we got.
There we go.
Nice.
Yeah, Mike was digging it.
Mike was probably like, I wish I had thought of this.
Yeah, no shit.
Right?
Or, fuck you, Matt.
I love that tree, man. Love the spiral.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Loving this art, man.
This is the first. You can read the first 5 pages when you go to the Kickstarter page.
Nice.
How much of book 2 do you guys have done? Or
It's over halfway done now.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
all
nice.
scripted. Kelly's about halfway with the art. Jose's coloring as he goes.
It's penciled. Half of it's penciled and inked, so it'll be the next one will be the same as this one. It'll be on time.
Yep.
Jesus, Kelly's a beast when it comes to knocking
No,
these pages
you know
out.
what?
We are old time pros, brother. We don't fuck.
Yeah,
around.
I mean it's you
Here,
either
there's the
For
print,
work.
which we had to put a no safe for work sticker over the boob.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm looking at a lot of this, and I'm just hearing dun 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 dun. You know, the Hammer Dracula theme by like Les Baxter.
how many people growing up in our time, that's the first time you saw a topless woman was in a Hammer film.
Yeah,
Right.
it was.
Well, also, you know, just the booby dresses, right?
Yeah.
Because they didn't have nudity until like towards the end, right?
Yeah.
Before that, they just had like the booby dresses.
A
Yeah.
swath of t-shirts, which are all terrific looking.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, I love that. They're all good. I would rock
Yeah,
all these
they are.
t-shirts.
The only problem with Hammer movies is that it
Yeah.
set me on a path to look for a woman that kind of looked like.
Right?
Yeah, no, I
Dude,
mean,
what do you
like
think
in
of
the
those big
face,
Scott
like they had
chicks in
that
the
dark
90s?
gothic
No,
look.
you're talking about the
Dracula.
Dracula theme. If you actually go back and listen to the Dracula theme, it musically says Dracula.
Yes.
It goes,
Dracula.
you know.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
No,
Yeah,
you will find a woman who like that, but you have to first find the dressmaker who makes the dress.
I found one.
That's what
She has a
makes
problem with me
like
biting her
that.
neck, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's fine.
it's the
good.
dress that makes them look like that.
Yes. And that's one of the things I always loved about the Hammer movies. Don't get me started on Hammer. I'll never stop. But the fact that those movies were generally low budget and yet they looked lavish.
Well, they'll tell you too that when they made them, everybody was sincere about what they were doing. None of them looked down on it. They were all completely sincere.
Balls out conviction performances from the actors.
And you'll hear that from other actors who came in that were hired in later, and they said they took this as serious as if they were doing Hamlet.
Another remarkable thing about those Hammer movies, both the Dracula and Frankenstein series, is they are linear. Like the next one takes up and lets you know where the last one left off. You know,
Well,
like especially the Dracula series.
Here's where Professor Frankenstein was since the last one. You know,
that's why they're fun to watch when you watch them all in a row. Is they all one another leads to another. Yeah.
The sweet spot. I don't know if you gentlemen would agree with me or not. The sweet spot for me: Dracula, Prince of Darkness. Dracula has risen from the grave. Taste the blood of Dracula.
Yeah, those are. Yeah, I would agree.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Those three titles alone, you just want to go and see them, right? I mean, the movie sucks. Those titles are awesome.
Yeah, I would agree that those three in a row are pretty, and Christopher Lee just is out of the park. Great,
the best, in my opinion. The quintessential Dracula. Also, the first Dracula with fangs. Actually.
Yep.
I gotta know too, man. Like, so for me, what I really loved about your whole concept of Dracula and what you're doing with these books, you're spending the first like 300 to 400 years prior to Stoker's novel. And I fucking love this amusement park that you're playing in. How long are you going to play in this amusement park for?
Book 2 takes us up to the very beginning of the novel.
Yeah.
No shit. Okay, cool.
Takes us up to just prior to the beginning of the novel, and I will not spoil anything else after that. But
damn right,
you'll be surprised about where it goes from there.
Yes, I was. I legitimately was. It's like, wow. And then it all was like, that's a book I'd like to read. If you're asking why I get it done, is because I want to see this too.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
weird.
the first time. It's the first time my wife has been thoroughly interested. Not like that's nice here, but like, well, when's Matt gonna do? And I'm like, going, this is great. This is great because I like I said, she was asking me questions. I said, I don't know. So what does she do? She gets on the computer and sends Matt notes.
She started texting me. What happens? And I'm just like,
oh wow.
I don't think I can tell you, Lynn.
Oh wow. Well, that's when you know.
And this is a form of cheating.
No, I can tell you right now that's what I'm getting from my civilian friends who they were interested because it was a crowdfunded thing. So
Yeah.
that's really the first time they know I do what I do, but this is the first time they've read something. And it has all been, with civilian people, meaning non-comic readers, it's almost, do I apologize to them for like, hey, you seem like a nice guy till I read this psychopathic book. But I let them read it, and they all come back to me saying, this is outstanding.
It is, dude.
It's really good.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
And that's for people who don't
What up,
know
Jason?
what we do.
What up, Jason?
And it's hardcore. It's a hardcore book. It is.
That's what these fellas were telling me.
Yeah.
It's one of the best reads I've gotten so
And
far.
book 2 even more so.
Oh my
What's
God.
weird is because it's so well written, like so fucking well written, right?
Well, you
and
can
then your
get
artwork
away
is
with a lot of
piece of
sex
art on each
and violence.
page.
You
Crazy.
can get
Well,
away
that's-
with
Sense of
a
pacing always
lot
impressed me.
of very explicit sex and violence if you have a great story. People forgive
yeah.
you.
Mhm.
They'll give you that Kubrick
Leeway.
Clockwork Orange thing. There's a lot of mayhem in it, but it's well
Well,
done.
I'm used to Matt's work. Like I love reading like Grendel Prime, that backup story. That was amazing, and then Grendel
my
War
favorite
Child
is
was
a favorite.
amazing, and I
had
knew what to
people,
expect, and I was like, oh, good, I got another, a
I've had
book
people
by
ask
Matt.
me, why do you, because I don't know. We've all, as time's gone on since the 70s, we've all gotten turned into such pearl clutching pilgrims. I mean, everybody's so goddamn tender these
Oh
days.
my God.
Yes.
Weak.
So many
I'm
ways.
Very
Offensive
weak.
line.
And people ask me, well, why is there so much
Offended.
sex and violence in your work? And I always say, because drama is all about change.
Yeah.
If something remains static, there's no drama. Drama has to change, right?
Yeah.
Drama has to threaten the status quo. And sex and violence are the agents of change. And that doesn't mean it has to be porn soaked and gore soaked. It has to have the threat of sex and violence. For instance, one of my favorite romantic films of all time is the Keira Knightley version of Pride and Prejudice. One of the most romantic films I've ever seen.
Yep.
I adore that film.
Yeah, me
There's
too.
not a single kiss until the last 10 seconds of the film.
Yep.
And because the threat, the possibility of sex is just rife through the entire thing,
And they do a great.
you know it's coming, so that makes you anticipate the change. You want
And what is so great is they did have sex, but it's at that scene. But it's not like you ever saw it. Like every
you don't need to see it. It's better not seeing it. Yeah,
better that they just did, and it's like post sex, and they're out there discussing the world.
So again, the sex is the beginning of life. Violence is the end of life. So these are the agents of change, and
I like to draw those things. I like to
I know what you're talking about.
Shakespeare understood this concept. You know what I mean? Shakespeare,
Yeah.
it's in every.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
I know exactly what you're
Shakespeare's
talking about.
Shakespeare could be incredibly bloody.
Yeah.
Right. And I think they would even use like animal entrails, like Lucio Fulci level kind of stuff.
Well,
yeah.
Polanski's Macbeth is a horror film.
Oh, one of the best horror movies ever made.
Yeah.
I always tell people, don't sleep on that. Like, if you think it's Shakespeare, you think it's going to be boring, watch the first 5 minutes.
And Shakespeare would love that because everything he did was sex and violence, so he could.
Yeah.
That's why he sold a lot of tickets in his day.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I know what you're talking about as far as like people not wanting to accept it because it's
drama.
It's violent, but
it makes drama. If you're showing up to see a couple of people sit around and talk, that's its own thing. That's a philosophical discussion, but that's not drama. And drama is change.
Got it, man. I gotta know, man. Other than Count Orlok, right? Was there any other counts that that you have that are favorite other than Dracula and Orlok?
Sure. Kelly, you want to go first?
Yorga?
Vampires?
No, I think she's talking about Dracula's versions of Dracula specifically.
Oh, versions of Dracula?
Not Orlok or not Dracula.
Count Yorga.
Count or a lord like Yorga.
Well,
okay, the fucking Kel loves Count Yorga.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I love those.
Well, Brian got me on Yorga. He put me on Yorga. I was like, damn, that motherfucker's awesome.
Yeah,
Yorga's badass.
But I also like Barnabas Collins in House of Dracula.
Yeah,
or House of
pretty badass.
Of Shadows.
We just did an interview early today to talk about our 5 favorite vampire movies.
I've seen that on Twitter. I've seen that. I'm gonna get in there Friday night and check it out.
No,
I just did a. There's a website called 13th Dimension, and they asked me to write an article about my 13 favorite versions of Dracula.
Oh.
One I will highlight right here that I don't think most people know about. It was in the 70s. This was a book series that was ubiquitous when I was a teen. I saw it on bookshelves all the time. I never read any of them back then. It was called the Dracula Horror Series, and they were all little pulp-sized novels. You know, in the aftermath of Bantam's reprinting of Doc Savage, all of a sudden there was a wave of pulp novels, new pulp novels, old pulp novels. It became a big thing on the bookshelves. So this was written by a guy named Richard Laurie, and crazy fucking concept. So there's a character, I forget his name, but he's a Professor X kind of international crime fighter. He's paraplegic. He has telepathic powers, just like Professor X, right? And he resurrects Dracula and takes the stake out of Dracula's heart, shaves off a giant splinter, surgically implants it back in his torso so it's right next to his heart, and then utilizes Dracula as his attack dog in his fight against international crime.
What is this again?
Dracula
pulp metal, dude.
He uses his mental powers to stick the spike in his heart and like knock him out, right?
What is this again?
It's called the Dracula Horror Series. There's about 9 of them. It's by a guy named Richard Laurie. And then there's 2 other members of the crime fighting team. One is the professor's giant Puerto Rican martial arts expert assistant.
Dude, that sounds awesome.
And then there's a centuries-old werecat woman.
Hell yeah, dude. That's what's up.
Yeah, these are just pure pulp pleasure. And Dracula
get out.
Dracula's just a fucking asshole who's trying to break away and be free of the confines of what this professor is making him do all the time. And yet,
I can't believe that wasn't a comic series.
He'll wipe out his
seriously.
house and he goes
the fuck out of that.
you know?
That sounds dope.
Yeah, it is dope. It's really great.
No, there's a lot of good stuff. I like. There's a story by Wilkie Collins, I believe his name is, but Stoker loved it, and it's called The Woman in White. And in it, the villain.
I love that novel. Yep.
Yeah, it's is Count Fosco, and that was obviously, here's this guy, and he's incredibly evil.
Yeah,
completely mercenary,
but very likable. Very likable.
He's fascinating, and I love that book. I read that like every few years. I have to sit down and read it. But Count Fosco is, if he had fangs, he would be a vampire. He'd be a great vampire.
Huh?
This is a little bit of a non sequitur, but actually, I believe that they just discovered a new Bram Stoker story.
Yes. You guys hear about that?
His short stories were better than his novel.
I wouldn't hold your breath, man. Stoker was not a great author.
He wasn't.
Dracula was a drag. One really great narrative. The rest of his books are really not so great.
No.
I didn't like the original Dracula.
Matt and I talk about this, right? See, Matt is like a Dracula guy. Me and Preston are Frankensteins.
Yeah,
like
Frankenstein's a much better novel. Yeah.
Yep.
Right? Frankenstein's a great novel. The problem
the reason I like Frankenstein is because I don't see a villain in Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Like the monster's not a villain.
Oh, there's a great. Okay, and this is
a huge misunderstanding.
I'll take a lot for this, but my absolute favorite spin on Frankenstein, when you leave it, Hammer included, is the Famous Adventures of Mr. Magoo does Frankenstein.
What?
And they
I don't remember this.
Yeah, there was a whole period where Mr. Magoo was doing adaptations of classic novels. I didn't know he did Frankenstein.
It is, and it's considered
Christmas Carol.
The finest. It's the finest one, and in fact, the plot is so great.
I gotta go look this up tonight.
I'll tell you.
What the fuck? This is so good. I know.
I'm looking for it right now.
In fact, the monster is voiced by Marvin Miller, who does Robbie the Robot. So
freaking amazing. Yeah. I got to check that out.
So what he does that is so cool are the guys who adapted it. What they did that was good was you go through him creating, and Magoo is Dr. Frankenstein. He's a prick in it. He's a real prick. And the monster is finally, rejected in the whole thing. Rather than make me a mate, the monster learns how to make learns all of his secrets, goes to this island, and Frankenstein's got to stop him now. He's been redeemed. There's hundreds that he's about ready to make more Frankensteins. And it's like, and it's just as he's about to throw the switch, so there'll be a whole race of Frankenstein monsters. It's outstanding.
Now I gotta look.
Oh, that sounds. I just looked for it. It's on YouTube.
I hope it is.
I'll watch that tonight before I go to bed.
Yeah, boy.
It is.
Yeah, boy.
It is. In fact, Daryl Clitters, who is a famous animator, did a book on Mr. Magoo, The Christmas Carol, which is an outstanding.
Yeah, it's classic.
Okay, but he took a couple of chapters, and talked about Frankenstein and their version of Frankenstein, and that he himself was researching who did the backgrounds, because that's the only one where they had this different background artist, and it was some woman, and he talks about how they wrote a score for it. It was that good, and it's only like 24 minutes, but it is my favorite Frankenstein outside of it, because every time I see it, I go, this is terrifying. And man, it is for a kid. I'm like going, I remember this, where the monster screams at you. He gets right up to and screams. I mean, screams.
Yeah.
And it knocks you back. But then what the goal of the monster is outstandanding. He
Well,
doesn't.
Can't wait to check
we were
that
talking
out.
about this recently. Stephen King, in one of his in his younger days, wrote an analysis of horror called Dance Macabre.
Yes.
And he breaks the horror archetypes into three: Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman.
Yep.
And that is
and Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Right.
Like,
That's
the
Wolfman's Jekyll and Hyde. Same thing.
Right.
So it's the seduction that consumes, the thing with no name, and the beast within. And then he includes the ghost as a subset of kind of all those. But the difference is, and Kelly and I have been talking about this, both Frankenstein and Jekyll and Hyde, or the Wolfman, they lament who they are and what they do.
Yeah.
And Dracula does not.
No,
I love.
No, he doesn't exactly guilt trip. He's a sociopath or a malignant narcissist.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say there's a good dose of narcissism, because he'll lament. Dracula always laments him. He's the victim of everything.
Always.
You know?
Yeah, that's a classic sign of narcissistic personality.
Yes. And you can't. And as Matt does so well, you can't really deal with one of those type of people.
No, you need to get away from them.
There's no sympathy here. It's
no.
No negotiation.
And the thing that's interesting too is it's like they love themselves, and yet also they hate themselves.
Well, and until you tell them something, and that's when you get impaled. So you
Was What We Do in the Shadows an influence on Dracula, or was it?
Not so much. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, how I've never really liked vampire humor. Like Dracula Dead and Loving It, Love First Sight. I always found those just banal and obvious. And not
I didn't like them either.
Now, how did you guys?
And yet, What We Do in the Shadows, it's like that joke should wear out in 5 minutes, and it never does.
It's
pretty good.
Absolutely brilliant.
It's a really good movie.
6 seasons of the TV show.
It's a series.
I gotta check out the show. I've never seen the show. The movie.
Taika Waititi hasn't made a
is
single good
Netflix.
movie since, but that one movie is really good.
The TV show's good too, dude. You gotta check that out.
TV show's amazing.
This season they're making a Frankenstein.
Because what I loved was they had like all these different eras of vampire in the same house, right?
Same
so
thing.
You've got like in the basement, you've got Count Orlok, and then you've got the new guy that's wandering around going, "Hey, Twilight."
Yeah. You got
On the TV show, they got an energy
everything in
vampire.
between.
I love what you're doing right here with I wanted to talk about this with Dracula, right? You have just in this iteration alone, you've done multiple new visuals of character concepts of Dracula, like this different designs of the way he is in your books. And in here, I just love the way he's just like morphing. You know, he's this cape. He's flying at this guy and he's hitting this guy in the tree with his claws. You know what I mean? And you haven't seen that. He's got this big motherfucker mustache.
Well,
you know
he's,
what I mean?
he's
Like,
impaling him on a branch shard there.
oh man, I'm just
God
loving
damn.
it, man. And you get a lot of different looks from him in the first book too. I don't want to spoil too much, but you guys got a lot,
Yeah.
And there's this one right here too, where his cape is bat-like, and it comes around and grabs him by the throat, and just
Always liked that.
It's very Kelly Jones.
Kelly did that in the Bloodstorm series, and
Yep.
it was great.
Yeah.
Where it was like Batman's claws was his cape.
Well,
You know
that
what I'm
one,
saying?
that one, he was just, they didn't say he was monstrous or anything. He was just Batman, and he would have fangs. And I thought that's not enough.
Yeah, exactly. That was
Well, you
amazing.
made him look ghoulish.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
that's not enough.
With the
And-
giant ears, too.
Yeah,
They had
And-
one scene where he chops the Joker's head off and he's just sucking blood out of Joker's like severed neck hole.
yeah, that took a few days for them to decide if they would let that happen.
Wow.
And as Kelly says, we don't have that with this. We can do whatever the fuck we
and
want.
that's a big reason I wanted to do this away, just him and I, because I didn't want to have to worry, like, is someone going to say no? Or there would be so much no to this.
Self-publishing.
That's why in the when he's
In the
dealing
French
with-
format, too.
when
Do you know what I'm
he's dealing
saying?
with
It's like
his
everybody's talking about manga, but it's like I keep thinking that what we should be doing is making comics like the French. Like the new French Conan comics are dope.
Yes, sir.
The new Elric comics that they've been doing are really dope.
Yes, sir.
I recently got a box set of all 4 of those. They're
Oh,
terrific.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
great.
Awesome. You got good reading. That's
That's
good
good.
reading.
And Kelly, like you had to switch your Bristol size to do this, right? Like from Impaler, right? It got a little bigger, right?
He curses me as he's cutting every page.
Yeah, cutting them, right? Yeah.
The other day I had to make another paper order, and I'm cutting paper, and I'm spending. And Lynn says, "Well, did you get any art done today?" And I said, "Well, I got a lot of paper cut and measured and ruled out, and I'm spending the whole day doing that." And so I didn't really get anything drawn, but I got a big, thick stack of pages now. So
Yeah. No, that's cool, man.
What size do you work? What size papers?
I'm working on what is it, Matt?
Well, the reproduction size is 8.5 by 11. So
yeah, so they're wider and there's more room.
So is it like 13 by 19 or?
I knew from the beginning we wanted to do it that size. Number one, Dracula is a incredibly European narrative, and number two, I just always felt Kelly's art needed this extra space to breathe.
Yes,
it needed this slightly bigger format.
And
boy,
if we
it really does explode when he's working this stuff.
And speaking of the French stuff, if they print it overseas, they don't have to make us. It'll be.
You don't have to change anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that,
Right to it.
I really feel that the French format is the future. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but I just feel like that's where we need to be.
Well,
going.
they have a very having just come back from Europe, they have an incredibly vibrant comic book market. They
really,
they're everywhere from what I hear.
Yeah,
like
from
they'll go
Italy-
to like a regular store and there'll be like comics
Italy.
there.
I went through Italy, France, and Belgium, and they're selling like crazy.
That's what's up. That's what I hear.
Yeah, my wife's from Montreal, and I lived up there with her for a couple of years. And of course, Montreal is predominantly French. And I would go to this bookstore called Marché du Livre, which just means bookstore in French. And they had a giant section of French graphic albums that I was able to pluck up at my own interest.
Yeah, our friend Sim is from Quebec, and he talks about like comic books aren't looked down on as an art form.
No,
the way that they
like
are
rock
here.
stars over here.
But it's like even with the movies and everything, it's still looked down upon, like one notch above pornography.
No,
it's better than what it was.
I saw comics on newsstands everywhere in Italy.
What?
Everywhere.
Wow,
that's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, everywhere you went, you found comics. Everywhere.
Amazing. We need to tap into those markets. We need to start translating our comics.
In Belgium were the best comic book stores I had ever seen. They had, they were, the two I went to had bars in them.
Oh shit, that's like awesome.
That's
they
amazing.
They had whiskey, bourbon, everything they liked.
That's my favorite.
Badass.
Yeah.
That's the kind of comic book store Charles Bronson would shop
you'd
at.
go up to buy
dude.
comics, and they had a full bar behind them too. So people,
that's amazing.
And then they had all this lounge area, so you could just sit and read and drink.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was
amazing.
If it was just one store, I wouldn't really mention it, but it was
now if only there was like a pot dealer there as well.
Right.
Yes.
All
Yeah, a little bit of Amsterdam. Put a little bit of Amsterdam.
Mushrooms while you're over there reading your comics.
It was remarkable, I will say. No, in Belgium, the best part is those people walk around with French fries. That's their dope.
I'll be down with some French
And if
fries.
you
That's the one
say-
thing I can't get.
If you say
you know.
French fries, they'll beat the hell out of you. You got to say Belgium frites. But
Maybe some
they will tell you they invented it. But everywhere you go, they're having French fries and comics. It's
Kelly,
amazing.
yeah.
Jesus Christ, that
That's
sounds
living
like
right
the
there.
How
Yeah.
civilized.
Garden of
Yeah,
Eden.
man.
we were looking at your art earlier, man. Your black and white stuff that I pulled off from Twitter. I mean, and you got some stuff on Instagram for the
Yeah.
for you know
Yeah.
you've been posting it. I follow you on both, and it's amazing. And I'd like to know, like, I know you use blue pencil. I just started incorporating that even tonight into my art, and you use ink. What other tools did you use for your utility belt in this?
I keep it simple, and I don't like to overdraw because I like to draw with the ink. I like to draw.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah,
But Carl, I wanted to ask you the last time I was looking at some of the finished inks. You're using a gray tone here and there. Specifically where he preys on the first gal, you've done some gray toning on her face. What are you using there?
I'm using it's a tone that I'm able to get. It's an animation one. If you want, Matt, I can send you all the places.
But what is it? Is it liquid? Is it dry?
No. It's you got to cut it. It's like an old Zipatone.
Oh, it's like an old Zipatone. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Okay.
See, this is what you get when the writer is also an artist.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's
And you don't reveal too much of your
only
secrets
use it in
either.
certain areas for certain
And
effects.
Yeah. No, you don't overuse it. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I don't. I use it slightly because I think I don't need to indicate too much to Jose. But for certain,
any of those tones, you have to be careful where you use them because you can
very much so. And it's got to be to punch forward something, not for the sake of it.
not to render per se.
Yeah, it's not, and it's basically to highlight a dramatic moment.
A moment.
When you have scenes with just people, and the scenes you're talking about, I know what you're talking about. It's getting very, very intense before it explodes. So I want something to make it interesting.
Just a little more. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it is.
A little bit of something.
Well,
I
and
love
also I love creepy and eerie, and those years they used to do it.
Fucking geniuses, man.
Hell
Yep.
yeah, man.
And the more I learn, I'm still a greenhorn. There's that. So like when you open the book, right, the Impaler. If you guys go back it right now, the hardcover, that inside cover artwork where he's standing in the woods,
Yeah.
That fucking image, man, it just sticks with me. I show my wife and kids. I'm like, look at that. You know what I mean? Like that just. It's so horrific. It's scary. You know what I mean? But beautiful at the same time, dude. Like
I think it falls into you're being watched.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it, man.
Yeah. And I've always been terrified of tree lines. I just hate tree lines.
Let me point out too.
There's something lurking in there.
Exactly.
This is a good marketing segue. So again, Dark Horse has released the trade paperback version. The hardcover versions are exclusive to the Kickstarter campaign. And those hardcovers are the only place you get these beautifully illustrated end papers from Kelly. Original end papers. There's a set in the front and a set in the back. So 2 different sets of end papers. You can only get those. Oh, there's the original.
That's
How
what
about
I'm
that? He
getting.
just reaches in his ass and pulls that out.
For the screen.
Let me full screen that real quick.
I think he just kicked him by
Keep holding it up
accident.
there, Cal.
It's all good.
There it is.
Nice.
A little bit to your left, Kelly. A little bit to your left.
So this
There you
picture sticks with me.
Beautiful.
I love this picture. Like I'd love that on my wall, above my
Oh, it's
fireplace.
gorgeous.
It's all about
Chef's
it.
kiss.
Again, you can only get that in the hardcover edition, only available in the Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, that's the thing with the crowdfunding is you want to offer something that people aren't going to be able to pick up at Barnes and Noble.
Yep.
Like people just don't know what they're missing, man. This is it. This
don't.
is it. This is the big thing.
It's the new shit.
For horror, for comic books, for art, for fucking these 4 books is where it's at. People just don't fucking know. You got to get in there. You got to back these books. And I'm not blowing any smoke either. This is it, man.
No. The praise is for real.
No, I think I appreciate that because for me, I have a pretty extensive book collection. of classic, of horror and whatnot. And what I always like is a lot of the book design from books many years ago had these kind of nice little extras that made it better than some a modern release of something. And in those books, it's basically the book jackets are phenomenal.
There's a group called the Folio Society that produces these beautiful hardcover editions of classic books that are illustrated. The only trouble is, I don't know who their art director is, but half of the illustrations are just fucking dog shit.
Yeah.
Half of them are pretty good, and the other half are just like, oh god, that's just ugly.
I recently got an edition of the novelization from 1935, the novelization of Bride of Frankenstein. And it is outstanding. The book, the novelization is
how the hell did you get? Did you just find that like on eBay or something?
No, there's
yeah,
because that's my jam. That's my favorite movie.
Yeah, it is outstanding. Whoever the guy who did the novelization, this is the second time I've read a novelization that expands upon it, but it's the other one is Forbidden Planet. That is one of the best science fiction novels I've ever
I love that one. Yeah.
And it will do things like it opens with you're on Earth and they're witnessing the light from the destruction of Altair 4 because it's finally reached Earth and it's 100 years later. And they're still trying to figure, because now everything's gone. The only thing that lets them know what it may be all true is Robbie's still there.
Oh, wow.
And Robbie is still so far ahead of anything they can do. So then they relate the story, and it's told into 3 parts: Morbius, Dr. Ostro, and then J.J. Abrams. And it's a brilliant novel. I mean, it's what you should get. And it explains everything, that the animals that Altera they were created from the mind of her father, and that's why they're not right. All of this stuff, it's very, very cool. Bride of Frankenstein, it goes into great detail on Dr. Pretorius.
Oh, nice.
It goes into great detail into Victor and his relationship before. Wonderful stuff, just wonderful stuff, but extremely well written. Beautiful stuff, but it's from 1935, and there's a book dealer who I know, and I'm a big fan of Nigel Neal, and he had been getting me Nigel Neal's stuff. It was only printed in England where they would print his screenplays. So he had said to me, are you into this stuff? And I said, yeah. And then so he started saying, well, would you want this? And yeah.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, like so they made novels out of like the Quatermass?
No, what they are is they did the screenplays, and they're not just, yes, you have the Quatermass, but they also have, and this is on Prime, and I recommend everyone watch this. They had the screenplay to the Stone Tape, which is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, that's a classic. Like people haven't seen. That's on Shudder right now, actually.
Right, and they have another one, and the name eludes me right now, but it is one of the most interesting ghost stories ever, because it takes place like 300 years ago, but the ghosts are from our time. And so it's these people dealing with this, and it is. In fact, they made the BBC recently adapted it to radio. It's absolutely fascinating. I think Nigel Neal is up there with H.G. Wells as far as ahead of his
sure. Yeah, for sure. John Carpenter said he wasn't a very nice guy, though. But
no,
great writer.
He was a curmudgeon, but he was made into a curmudgeon because he had to deal with the BBC network, which were a bunch of idiots, right? So
and Carpenter's a curmudgeon now, so
he is.
Yeah, I remember there was a Quatermass radio show too. Yeah. That was awesome, actually.
No, it is, and but his ideas. I mean, Stephen King took his ideas for the Tommyknockers.
For sure.
Yeah. So his ideas are stunningly original. And the Stone Tape is about as terrifying a thing as I have seen.
Yeah, for those that aren't aware, it's basically about stone being able to they want to turn it into a recording medium because places are haunted.
Kitty,
and they think that they're like echoes.
Yeah.
Aw, kitty, kitty, give me some love.
I had him for a second.
I will shut the screen down.
Yeah, she walked off screen just as soon as you did that.
Like, see you later, bye type shit. I gotta know, what gets you guys in the zone? All right, for writing and for art. I mean, I'm sure both you guys write and both you guys do art.
Yeah.
I know that. And do you guys listen to music? Do you guys listen to do you guys listen to scores from movies?
Sure.
Do you listen to Wagner?
Sure.
No, I don't listen. I don't listen. It depends on the task. I mean, what gets me in the zone, I would just say, is daylight.
Okay.
I mean, this is just what I do, man. It's
fucking dope.
It's the same as breathing to me.
Awesome.
But lately I've been listening to a lot of podcasts more than I can't do that when I'm writing.
Right.
Drawing. In fact, this is a fun little segue. My son's a big fan of Last Podcast on the Left.
Yeah.
Okay. After those
And
guys.
the guy who does that, so it's one dude who's the main guy, and he has two buddies who are the comic relief, and he also does another podcast with his wife called No Dogs in Space, which is a deep dive into like all my fucking favorite bands. So New York Dolls, Velvet Underground, the Ramones, the Replacements, the et cetera, Patti Smith, et cetera, et cetera. And so I sent these guys a fan note and say, hey, I don't know if you ever know much about comics, but I've been in the business for a long time, and your podcast here, this is the soundtrack of my entire career, And so he emailed me back and he said, oh my God, I love Sandman Mystery Theater and I'm a big fan of your work. And would you be interested in drawing something that I would write? Because they also do a comic for Z2 Comics called Last Comic Book on the Left.
That's
and,
dope. Awesome.
And I was like, I don't know, because I don't really work with other writers very much. He said, well, it's about Sid and Nancy. It's about who killed Nancy.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I'll do that. So it's a 20-page story. It's coming out in the beginning of 2025. So that's kind of fun.
That's cool, man.
But podcast-wise, I'm listening to there's a guy that has a really great podcast called The History of Rock Music in 500 Songs.
Oh, that's dope.
It is super academic. Like, this guy knows this shit down to the button. And really, I mean, he's only up to like song out of 500 songs. He's only up to song, I want to say 180.
Yeah.
That's cool though, dude.
Just a deep dive into the history of rock music. Really love that.
Yeah.
I love that Ramones piece you did, dude. Because you've been fucking lighting up Twitter with pieces.
Oh, Matt's been killing it.
Those are old pieces, man. I just happen to have them, and I just, if I don't have something
piece, dude,
contemporarily, like immediately coming out, I just post old stuff. But
nah, dude, you're tearing it up.
Yeah.
But Kelly, you listen to music, right?
All the time.
Yeah,
all the time. I listen to a lot of old radio shows too.
Kelly's got to be a metalhead, right?
I have everything. I mean, I'll listen to everything, but I have an enormous collection of obscure old horror film soundtracks that I love. I have tons of like I said, radio shows. BBC just put out recently. Mark Gatiss did The Blood on Satan's Claw, and I just listened to that.
Yeah.
And that was
my God. Yeah, he's like a fellow fan of that movie. I had to turn my homeboy onto that because it's very easily, I mean, it's really obscure. It's not even a Hammer movie. That was Tygon, if I remember.
Yeah, it's outstanding. And but there's a lot of I've got just all the time I've got something going on. What I'll do is I want to create my own white noise to work, you know?
Sir. Yes, sir.
And that's it. Like, at one point I had one television with the sound down. I'd have some old movie on, listening to music. I have all these things going on, but what happens is it all crowds out and it's like meditation. So when I'm working, I'm not distracted because I live with a house full of cats and, there's always something breaking or whatever. So you just want to stay in your zone.
Yeah,
no,
I like
100%.
either musical or narrative when I'm drawing.
Yeah.
When I'm writing, I have to have just space,
Soundtrack.
silence, just complete utter silence. Just,
Yeah. Well,
complete
writing's different. That's a
Mhm.
different matter. You do, because then you'll be distracted.
Yeah.
This mine is actually a way to not be distracted, because then I
Mhm.
just focus on what I'm doing. It's a weird thing. I don't know where it. I didn't start that way, but it works for me.
It's fucking awesome. It's
By the
also
way,
like-
total non sequitur, but I believe that Kelly and I are wearing the same T-shirt. I don't know if you can
What?
see it though; it's all worn.
What the fuck? Nah, dude,
Yeah.
you're not wearing the same T-shirt.
Yeah, I am. Can you see
think-
it?
Oh yeah.
I went and
comparison,
changed
do the
his shirt real
comparison.
quick.
Damn,
Where the fuck is that from? That's totally cool.
Oh, that's the intro.
that's so rando.
intro to
I know.
Abbott Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Yeah,
that
baby.
was my introduction,
yeah,
dude.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
like
yeah,
my
yeah.
introduction to the Hammer.
No,
know,
a friend of mine sent it to me. He's head of publishing at Lucasfilm, and he knows I love that. So he used to be an editor at DC, and as a favor for a book I was doing, I put in those. I put in those characters, and so he always remembered that in a Batman story.
I gotta know, man.
It's
Like,
here, but I'm squashing my cat. She's wedged herself in behind me in the back of the
Aw.
seat.
Yeah.
Aw. Yeah, little back warmer. Oh,
gotta
cats are
know.
the best.
I'm gonna look at these tiers right here. You guys got a bunch of tiers right here on the campaign. You got the
Yeah.
digital for $10, and you got the the double for 20. Like, dude, if you guys don't want to buy the book, check that out. But personally, like,
You're gonna want the book.
you're gonna want the fucking book. Like, if
Digital's-
shit goes to shit and somebody drops a fucking EMP, you're gonna want people to come over to your house. You're gonna want a fucking
Well,
book.
if you have a big fire, right?
I'm
I
sorry,
never
but
got
not-
digital. Like, I mean, there's not like a physical comic.
I don't fuck with
makes-
digital. I don't do that. I don't do that.
It makes
Like,
sense to have a digital tier. I always
You
have a
gotta have
digital tier
You gotta have it.
because some people are on the other side of the world and they don't want to
Sure.
pay $28 for
Yeah.
shipping.
Yes, sir.
And I get
Yes,
that.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I agree.
But, you gotta have it. And you guys got the book 2 Kelsey cover right here for $50. And this book is thicker than the original
30
book
pages
1.
longer.
30
pages
pages
longer.
fucking longer, guys. Okay.
I backed this immediately. As
Yeah.
soon as I seen
backed-
it, I was like,
Back to 2.
and
Brian, you need to get in here and you got to back. I don't know if you backed 1 or 2, but you got to get in there back at
No, I didn't. That's
still-
what I'm
there's
saying.
still
I'm waiting
copies of
for the
book
trade
one,
paperback.
yeah.
But this, it's
Fucking
in
trade
French
paperback.
format,
Yeah, gotta get
hardcover. I'm all over this.
Dude, Brian, I'm telling you, you got to get in here.
yeah, you
Sold.
don't know what you're missing, dude.
For Brian.
Sold.
Brian.
Yeah.
Trade paperback is cool if you want to look at like. I'm sorry, but you want to look at Kel's art and just kind of like, damn, you know what I mean? Not get your,
You can
not
get
your
the trade
hardcover all
paperback
dirty.
as a reading or lending copy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like for me,
Oh,
for me, that's what I want. Like I'm gonna look at Kel's art and I'm like, damn. Okay,
Yeah.
what did Kel do right here? You know what I mean? Oh, okay, all right.
yeah, and just that
I
French
can do it.
format is just so
Exactly.
fantastic. I just love it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
me and Matt are like, what can we steal from Kelly?
Yeah, you go.
And the thing
All
is,
artists steal from other artists.
well, the thing is, you don't want to give away too much of your stuff, and I learned that from one of my best friends. And then we got right here, you got the Dracula limited edition, book 1,
First
125.
first one, yep. We have a few of those left.
A couple of those, dude. And then you got a Dracula limited edition, numbers 11 through 18. Just a few of those left. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you got Dracula book number 1
Number
limited
2 through
edition.
10,
Number
yep.
2 through
Yep.
10. Get in there, get those. It's dude, this.
Yeah, that was
Fuck,
the
man.
art portfolio we did with the first one. It was
Oh.
it comes in a beautiful sleeve. It's
That's
7
the one right there,
offset print 11 by 17 plates of some of Kelly's most beautiful pages from the first volume.
Man,
Oh.
I would knock somebody out for that.
Blackjack.
$235 art folio. Get that, dude. Get that. That's the one.
We have a lot of tears this time.
Art folio Dracula book 2 limited edition. You get art folio prints and also the new book with the new cover. Yep.
That's a baby.
Hey, this is off subject a little bit, but I was wondering, Matt, did you like do a follow up to the Devil's Odyssey yet, or is it?
Yeah, it's out right now.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it's called Devil's Crucible. It will be 16 issues total. We're doing 4 issues per year, so it'll be 4 sections of 4 issues each. The first one's called Devil's Crucible Defiance, and the 4th issue just came out.
You guys got your stuff like lined up systematically perfect, like for what you're doing. I love it. Then Dracula Book 1, 666, limited edition 666. You know, and Matt, what does that one come with? The devil tier, Sir Wagner.
The what? Say it again. That's just it's just numbers. It's just the last of the numbered ones of 666 copies. That's number 666, and then we also have number 1 available. We just kept those aside to sell later. Yeah, see, there's number 1, and those are both available for 666.
Oh my god! You got Dracula Book 1.
This is the standard editions, the standard hardcover editions of Book 1. They're still available. Yep.
You got a couple of those. You got
Kelly's cover, my cover. Yep.
And I'm just showing all these tiers, guys. You got to check them out.
Well, it's always good to have a lot of tiers.
And we're also offering with the limited edition this time around. We're offering 50 copies. Wherein Kelly will do a remark, a headshot remark, and as you can see there, it's a little better than what you think of as most remarks.
That ain't a remark; that's a piece.
Yeah,
that's a
right.
Piece.
Right.
Is that how you pronounce that?
We'll be doing that on the tip-in sheet that we signed. So
I love that, dude. I love that piece right there.
Always pronounce that remark.
Remark. I don't know, man. I just love you guys just really nailed Dracula, you know, with the mustache, dude. Like there's just something about it, man. Like,
well, you know what other Dracula had a mustache? Xander Vorkov. What do you guys think about? Where do you rank Xander Vorkov?
I put him
amongst the Draculas.
Very high up. Xander's great. Gray Morrow did a great drawing of him, I thought.
Oh, did he really? Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's also Christopher Lee was in a Spanish language, originally Spanish language, although they filmed it in English, Spanish production, called Count Dracula.
Yeah, by Jess Franco.
Well, his actual name is Jesus Franco. He changed it to Jess for the American market.
Yep.
It's not a terrific movie, but he looks very much like he looks in the novel.
Yeah,
they gave him. That's the one movie, right? Like I turned Homeboy up here onto that, and it's just like it's the one movie where you get the total package with Dracula. Christopher Lee
right now
with the mustache and the gray hair.
The closest it's ever been, though, was Christopher Lee, but it's in a documentary called In Search of Dracula.
Yeah, that's
wow.
And that's where you see him dressed in the classic Romanian Transylvanian garb, but he's got the mustache, the hair, everything.
Oh my.
Yeah, it's actually it's a lot of filler in it, but where it's good, it's great. It's a good documentary.
Yeah, the Jess Franco movie, it's good. It's okay.
Yeah,
but I have the book, right? Because I think it was the same guy, Radu, something or another. It's who did In Search of Frankenstein.
In fact, the guy who made it, I actually like the filmmaker who made it, Calvin Floyd, and he did probably the closest to Frankenstein film called The Terror of Frankenstein.
With Perra Oscarson as the monster.
I think I know that it influenced Wrightson's view of how to do it. It's really cool, and he made a very nice little film called Sleep of Death, based on a Le Fanu novel or short story with Patrick McGee in it, and that is terrific as well. But he was a Swedish filmmaker who loved European Gothic stuff. Those are the 3 things he made, and they're all cut. But Terror of Frankenstein's top shelf stuff.
Yeah, I got that on DVD. Like that's criminally underrated or
criminally underrated. It is, but it had its big moment where CBS used to play it late night in the 70s, early 80s, and that's
how about I'm assuming you guys have seen Frankenstein: The True Story. Was it a 2-part TV movie?
Well, it's got James Mason. I had to see it. I love James.
Peter Weller.
I got the Blu-ray. The Blu-ray.
No, it's not Peter Weller. It's Michael Saracen.
Yeah.
Leonard Whiting. It's okay. It's not great. I remember it was a big deal when I was in high school. If you watch it now, it's all right.
The scene with the bride, right, who's played by Jane Seymour, right? And the monster comes in and he like gives her a kiss and he just tears her head
rips her head off. Yeah, that's like the best moment in the movie.
Incredible. What's great is the first episode. I think the first 2 hours is amazing because it's completely like new stuff, and then the second one isn't as good because it's just following the novel and you know everything that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Did you guys see? Did you guys watch the Netflix Castlevania? And if you did, what are your thoughts on it?
I didn't see it. No,
I haven't seen that.
So good.
Okay, it's fucking good.
I haven't seen that either.
It's fun.
Oh, it's really
fun.
Really good.
It was a Warren Ellis that wrote it.
I think so. I think it was
The pacing in the second season isn't that good. There's a lot of filler. Things are really kind of stretched out. But still definitely worth watching.
Yeah.
You guys play video games, Matt and Kel? Do you guys play video games at all?
No fucking time for that, man.
If I did, I would
wish I had your discipline, sir.
Okay, I don't fuck video games anymore. I stopped playing them about
too many stories to write and draw.
Yeah, it's a habit
right now. That's where I'm at. I stopped playing video games probably about 7 to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
There was
not that I haven't played video games. I have, but
same here.
There was a video game.
I have some old classic pinball machines. I still play those.
Oh, sweet. That doesn't count. That doesn't count at all.
Those end pretty quickly. Yeah.
There was this video game though, right? It was called Dracula, Lords of Shadow, and it was a reboot of Castlevania, right? And they had Robert Carlyle voice Vlad, and they had Professor Rex. I forget his name, Patrick Stewart. That is. He did the voice of this necromancer, and they had a couple other people. In the storyline, you're this first vampire hunter in the first game, and you go in throughout Eastern Europe. It's very Guillermo del Toro in the first game. But towards the end of the game, you fight you're this vampire hunter, and you fight different lords. They're all fallen angels. You fight a fallen angel that turns into a wolf, a fallen angel that's a necromancer, and a fallen angel that turns into a vampire, which is Carmela. And you destroy them. By the time the second game comes out, it's Lords of Shadow 2. They only made 2, and this is the best Castlevania games I've ever fucking played. And the second game, you fight Lucifer, and you become Dracula. You become Dracula in the second game. In the second game, you were Dracula throughout the whole game, and you're Robert Carlyle. He does the voice, but it's completely fantastical. I don't know if you guys heard about that game at all or played it or anything.
No.
Yeah, I'm pretty divorced from the game world. I don't really know much.
Yeah, my kids would know it, but I wouldn't.
It's fucking crazy though. I just had to throw it out there and see if you guys ever heard about it. If you guys I gotta know too, man. If you guys were ever gonna make toys, what type of toys would you make?
Well, if anybody approaches us, we certainly would. I as far as
with tear-offable blouses.
Yes, sir.
We're mainly looking for other. At this point, we're talking to some foreign publishers.
Yep.
That's publishing's the main focus at this point. I don't. When I read this book, it doesn't immediately scream toys to me. Like if somebody came to me with a great idea for a toy,
statues,
look with it.
Yeah,
but
maybe a statue.
I wouldn't mind a Randy Bowen statue of it.
Right.
Yeah,
although Randy's totally retired, so that's not gonna happen.
For me, like I'd have to spoil like part of the first book, but he turns around and you have it on a T-shirt on this campaign, right? And I'm not going to show it right now either, but I would fucking love a toy of that. You know what I mean? No, I want a fucking toy. I don't want.
I know what you're talking about. I know.
I have a bunch of friends telling me the same thing, that they've went through it, and I have said, geez, I don't really see toys out of it. And they have said, no, here. And they
exactly.
They some of them want statues of Dracula with a girl. So and I get that. I mean,
it's best to wait for book 2 for that one.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, that's what I say. Just wait till
we're more embracing of girls in book 2.
Yeah, you got a lot.
Hey, fellas, I hate to be a killjoy here, but it's getting kind of late, and I got to kind of roll. So,
we got writing to do.
We should wrap this up.
Writing to do and drawings to get done.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming by, guys. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, we can have you on again next year for book 3.
Book 3, baby. Yep.
I'd love to. I can't wait to see what you guys got cooked up for that one. I just backed. I mean, I didn't just back this book. I backed it a few days ago, and I encourage anyone that's watching this and on the replay. We do get some replays to go and back this book. You're gonna fucking love it. Anyone that watches this channel, you're gonna love this book. Get in there and back this book. You're gonna want that hard copy by two of the comic industry's icons. And I don't know what else to say, man. That other than that. Matt Wagner, where can we find you, brother?
I'm on both Facebook and X. I don't really do Instagram so much. And you can find a whole wealth of Grendel comics via Dark Horse, darkhorse.com. My other major series, Mage, is available through Image. Various works through DC, some Batman projects, Sandman Mystery Theater.
Yeah, classic books.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yep.
And Kel, where can we find you at, brother? Where can we check you out?
Same thing. Facebook, X, Instagram. Tons of stuff. DC's just been reprinting a bunch of my stuff lately.
Fuck yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I always like to say in the long boxes of some old comic book stores. That's where I like to be found.
I forgot. I just launched a brand new website.
Really? Oh shit.
No, it's
How
called
does this get your mind?
MattWagnerComics.art.
Okay.
It's a website and online store. A lot of shit from my own private stash that has built up over the years, and you get a cool signed certificate of authentication for everything you buy that states it's from my personal collection. And we are very soon going to have a whole line of T-shirts and merch available as well. So,
what's that URL again?
MattWagnerComics.art.
We all need that. Kelsey, you got where can we find you at, Kel?
You will find me working for Matt.
We gotta get your website up too, man. Working time.
Seriously, bro.
After these two Dracula books, he's gonna be retired.
Matt.
He's locked in the crypt, baby.
Yeah, I know. It is.
Well, thanks for coming on, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. A lot of fun.
Nice talking to you, fellas.
Yeah.
And everyone that's watching, always remember to be bold, be brave, and roll the bones to know your role. I'll see you guys next time. Stay fucking metal, and happy Halloween.
Peace. Police squad.